And welcome in everyone. To anyone watching live right now, we are here on YouTube today, recording a what's the best way to say it? Kind of
NFC South preview.
yeah, but something we didn't really plan on. Something
Yeah,
we just were like, this would be cool to do. Start doing this probably on the weekends, just a divisional weekend, and try and cover that for the people. Help boost our YouTube a little bit as well. So here we are. You can find us on YouTube at Dynasty Force Podcast, and find us on Twitter as well at Dynasty Force Pod. Catch all of our podcasts there for the most part. Um, I'm here with my great co-host, my very smart co-host here, Billy Brisbane. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing very well, man. Excited to get a quick synopsis of the NFC South because it's going to be such a very fantasy friendly division. So I felt like it was a good division to definitely start off the divisional previews.
For sure. We're gonna try and keep this short, sweet, to the point. Just a nice little thing for you guys to, you know, jump into. Like, you've kind of been off on not seeing what happened during the off season, or you're just new to the game of fantasy football trying to find a way to get into it. Here we're going to just be breaking down the teams inside the divisions really quickly, and talking about where the upside is, and where obvious situations are, and where we like value. So why not just kick it off right here? Last year, the New Orleans Saints were the division winners. Um, Drew Brees is their quarterback. He missed 6 games and was replaced by Teddy Bridgewater, who was pretty good for those few games that he missed. And um, let's start with the givens, right? Alvin Kamara is a top 5 back in most fantasy circles. Um, Michael Thomas is a top 3 wide receiver without a doubt in fantasy circles, and a lot of people have him as the number 1, as they should. Billy, who's your next favorite player to really target in this offense?
Um, I want to touch on Alvin Kamara, even though he's one of the best pass catchers year in and year out. He's a stay away for me in redraft leagues, but in Dynasty, I can see the appeal with Mixon and Cook both dealing with contract situations. Kamara gives the type of safety that you're looking at the player because of penalty, but I do not like him in redraft. Latavius Murray for me is the handcuff that's going way too late and seems like a mid-season hot industry waiver wire target for me. So I'm trying to get ahead of him early in redraft and dynasty leagues. And I'll save Emmanuel Sanders for you. But with Breeze, I think he could retire this year and take the Booth job offer that he already has. And Jameis Winston could be the future here. I like Jameis Winston's value in Dynasty. You can get him very cheap if you go late round QB, and you set yourself up for the future as well. How about you? How are you looking at this team?
All right, so as far as Drew Brees, for this season, I have him ranked as a top 5 quarterback. So I really like Drew Brees this season. I feel like he has the best core of weapons around him that he's had since 2016. And really before that was when Jimmy Graham was really hitting. So before 2016 and before, was when he was hitting those really high yardage totals and touchdown totals. So we know Drew Brees is capable, even though he's 41 years old. He's not showing any lack of arm talent or anything. He just doesn't go deep as much. He doesn't really need to when you have Michael Thomas, when you have Emmanuel Sanders, when you have Alvin Kamara, you have Jared Cook, guys who can do really well in the short game. Um, as far as Jameis Winston, I tend to believe more what the team says, that they're looking to Taysom Hill to become the guy. Not that, don't hear what I'm not saying here. I don't believe that that's the right decision, but I believe that Sean Payton is dead set on making Taysom Hill the franchise quarterback of this team. He's someone that's been on this team for a while, has shown the athletic promise, and has been kind of behind Drew Brees for years now. So he hasn't been overly used. That could change a little bit this season. I heard preseason before Brees even signed that he would be willing to split snaps with Taysom Hill more. But the thing is, like, if Drew Brees goes down, Jameis Winston is someone who immediately steps in and is someone who could still help them win a championship this season. Um, I don't agree necessarily with Alvin Kamara. I haven't heard anything about contract extension for Dynasty for him, so he has sort of the same worries long term as Joe Mixon does. If I'm not mistaken, he's on the last year of his deal at the moment. I've not heard really anything about Alvin Kamara getting an extension. So Latavius Murray would be someone who would be a really cheap, just sort of hold him, see where it goes. And when if Alvin Kamara misses games, which he has in the past, then then Latavius Murray would be a top 5 back because Kamara missed 2 games last season, and Latavius Murray put up over 30 points both of those weeks. And I just looked it up. Alvin Kamara is a free agent after this season. Like I said, I haven't really heard many contract talks about him. So, concerning in a way, but we'll have to see how it works. And you mentioned already that I would talk about Emmanuel Sanders. He's someone that I have him ranked at 33, so I'm not relying on him to be great, but I think he definitely has top 15 upside in this offense. He's someone that is the clear wide receiver too. He's ahead of Jared Cook in the pecking order. Alvin Kamara is going to get his targets as well as Michael Thomas isn't going to go down very much. But I don't see Michael Thomas repeating the 180 some targets that he had. He'll probably get closer to 160. And then that just leaves a clear path for Emmanuel Sanders to get 100 to 120 targets. And in a Drew Brees offense, that's going to be productive, going to give Emmanuel Sanders the opportunity. And he's a great wide receiver still. I don't think anyone's really questioning that. I think he has a lot of opportunity to have a great season, and I think a lot of people are kind of sleeping on him there. I don't have strong feelings for Jared Cook. I just feel like he's kind of that touchdown dart throw where you're just kind of hoping that he makes it. He made it more than he didn't last season, but that's not how I like to play with my tight ends. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I would definitely be buying Adam Troutman in Dynasty.
Yeah, he's someone I like to draft later in the rookie drafts there. Probably won't hit in the next few seasons, but give him some time and he can hopefully become, if Taysom Hill takes over, if Jameis Winston takes over, whoever, hopefully he can become a big part of the offense. All right, next team up. We're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons, my favorite team here. I got the shirt on to prove it. If you can see, Julio Jones, Matt Ryan shirt about their franchise record game. So let's start there. Julio Jones is a top 5 wide receiver. And if he isn't, whoever's making those rankings is crazy. Matt Ryan is, for me, quarterback 9. I think he's kind of going around that range. He has shown in recent years upside to finish as a top 5 quarterback, but I don't know how I feel about that this year. I'm not really banking on it. Todd Gurley I have as a top 12 running back. He's really the clear-cut number 1 option. The team signed him to a 1-year deal, so they don't really have to worry about, his longevity. Just give him the work. And then Calvin Ridley, I have currently ranked as number 18, which I feel like is low compared to consensus, but realistic compared to where he should actually be going. And then Hayden Hurst is kind of that dart throw. I have him ranked currently as tight end 13, but he's been creeping up a lot more in the ADP, not just in Dynasty, but also in best ball leagues. Billy, what are your thoughts on the Atlanta Falcons offense?
With the world of uncertainty, I think this is one situation that won't be affected too much by the whole entire coronavirus situation. Matt Ryan finished as a QB 11. I like Matt Ryan again as a back end QB 1 in Dynasty and in redraft. My only concern about Matt Ryan is he's more of a floor pick rather than a high ceiling upside pick.
I agree.
One of the reasons that one of the things I try to check off the boxes for me, especially in dynasty leagues, I like to have quarterbacks at rushing upside because it's easier outs and a higher floor. Um, Todd Gurley didn't get bad at football, but the offensive line for the Rams did. I'm trying to actively gain shares in redraft, not so much in dynasty. I'm more higher on the rookie running backs. We'll touch on that later. Julio will still be a top 5 wide receiver for redraft, but the age 31 obviously scares me for dynasty for upside. I don't want to be stuck with Julio when the cliff falls off. Calvin Ridley is more of a target for me, wide receiver wise, on this team. He was the wide receiver 27 last year, averaged 15 points per game, and he missed 3 games. If you project out those stat lines and he balances out those 3 games that he misses, he can finish as a wide receiver 12, which would be right behind Devontae Parker, but ahead of Jarvis Landry. So he would be a back end wide receiver 1 for this upcoming season, which is somewhat of a value right now, especially in the 4th, 3rd round turn. Russell Gage is a player I'm actively buying in dynasty leagues. He will be a good bye-week filler, especially for this year, and he has wide receiver 2 upside long term. Hayden Hurst was acquired over the all season. I think he'd take I think him and Austin Hooper even switch. He could easily produce the same exact stat line, but the volume will come down just a tad because of the uptick of targets to the wide receiver position. How do you feel about the conundrum between Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley?
When talking about Dynasty, I'm going to take Julio Jones because Julio is known to be a stud, and we just haven't seen that yet from Calvin Ridley. Though, a lot of people are kind of projecting him to take that leap. I'm not saying that he can't. As a Falcons fan, I hope he does. But I will take what I know, and what I know is that I believe for the next 2 seasons. I know Julio, at least for this season, is going to be great, and I'm projecting that he's going to be great for 2 or 3 more seasons. So I'm going to take that top 5 wide receiver for the next 2 or 3 seasons over, what I hope to be a top 15 guy with hopefully top 5 upside in the future. What do we really expect for Calvin Ridley? It's kind of hard to just work out like that.
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned Russell Gage. I've kind of been back and forth on this because the Atlanta Falcons signed Laquan Treadwell over the offseason. He's kind of got like no attention at all. And I'm not saying that he should get attention, but what I am saying is that if the Atlanta Falcons were to start Laquan Treadwell over Russell Gage, they would feature an offense with everyone being a first rounder in the past. And that's something that I don't believe has ever been done in the NFL before. So that's something that I feel like would just kind of be so tempting to them. Maybe it's a downgrade for the offense, but like, oh, hey, we can set history by doing this. Like
Yeah.
that gives me some pause. It's just a weird factor of my thinking, honestly. But Russell Gage is the better player than Laquan Treadwell, and he should be on the field. He's more the Mohamed Sanu type player that they would want to fill that role, and he was great, for what he was when he played last season. after Sanu was traded. So, yeah, we don't really expect a ton of touchdowns from Matt Ryan, as we never really do, but the yardage will be there, and that that alone can lead Russell Gage being a consistent wide receiver 3, and for what he's basically free right now. So, that's just great to jump on. All right, let's head into the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Many changes here. Lost Jameis Winston, but replaced him with Tom Brady. Lost Peyton Barber, and they're replacing him with Keyshawn Vaughn. And then you add Rob Gronkowski to the mix. What are you projecting for this Tampa Bay offense? The team overall, a lot of people are saying Super Bowl. But overall, what do you think of the offense?
Fantasy-wise, Tom Brady is no Jameis Winston, but such an upgrade in real-life football. I think there'll be less passing attempts from the team and more rushing attempts from the team. I like Godwin's ability to produce no matter what, but Mike Evans has gone down significantly for me. I feel like I feel comfortable picking Godwin up into the back end of the first round, and he's a staple in the second round. Mike Evans will produce, but not the wide receiver one history that is in his profile. The addition of Gronk will affect Mike Evans' red zone targets. Gronk is weird for me because in home leagues he'll go way earlier, but in savvy owner leagues he goes way too late. But it's hard for me to pick him in Dynasty over a player like Mike Gesicki or Irv Smith Jr. or something like that. But I think the real value for me for the Buccaneers is Keyshawn Vaughn. Anybody that has seen anything on my Twitter or seen any of our videos through any of the forecast networks, probably the biggest Keyshawn Vaughn supporter in the community. It really comes down to you always say, what do we know? We know Ronald Jones can't pass block. There's a big hole in that team for running back. Peyton Barber saw a lot of touches. Bruce Arians, once he talked about it already, he wants to rely on one guy, and he wants that guy to be a good pass blocker. And I don't think Ronald Jones is cutting that for me. And I think Keyshawn Vaughn has the upside in redraft and dynasty. He has the upside of being the highest rushing yard total on the ground out of all rookie running backs. How do you feel about that? I know you don't agree particularly, but I'm really not. It's a bet against Ronald Jones. I'm not a Ronald Jones guy at all. I always thought he was a bust.
Yeah, I definitely agree as far as like Ronald Jones is not a great running back, but my worry is that we've never really seen rookie running backs step into a Bruce Arians offense and succeed. Like, more so for the pass blocking aspect of it. I understand completely that Ronald Jones is not a great pass blocker, but Ronald Jones has 2 years plus of NFL experience as far as pass blocking.
Pass blocking.
What's that?
He's proven to be one of the worst pass blockers in the league, stat-wise.
But the thing is, okay, but who's to say we're not going to see Dario? I can't even say his last name. Yeah, exactly. Like, who's to say we're not going to see him on third down again? Just because.
I'm glad that you said that, because the reason why I like Keyshawn Vaughn is because I think even though Ronald Jones might be the banger type of running back, I really think Keyshawn Vaughn can beat out Derek Ogunbowale because he's just the average guy. Even though he's just the average guy, he can find his way onto the field. But I think that is going to effectively hurt more Ronald Jones than Keyshawn Vaughn, because I really think Keyshawn Vaughn steps into this team and they give him a couple touches. Brady really likes what he has. Things don't really work out. And Keyshawn Vaughn is what Miles Sanders was for fantasy owners last year.
I agree with you in saying that there is a path for that to happen. My problem is only that I just feel like it's hard to say that a rookie running back's going to step in and pass block well, because that's not something a lot of running backs do in college. much less, the level of competition being completely different. So that's something that we'll have to watch for. Another sort of disagreement we have is, I have Mike Evans ranked as the number 7 overall wide receiver for me this year. Godwin's right there at 8. So you're off on Evans as being a wide receiver 1, whereas you have Godwin a little, probably in that 5 to 6 range. Um, my thing is that Mike Evans is one of the most talented wide receivers we've seen in a long time. He has
I think that's
five
incorrect.
5 straight seasons of 1,000 yards to lead
I
off his
think that's
career.
more of the situation that he was in. He was the clear target hog number 1, 2, and 3 on the team for so long. I told you from earlier, he has a wide receiver 1 profile, but if you really look at the profile deeply, he really resembles his player comparison, which is going to be Vincent Jackson. I think he will be a Vincent Jackson type receiver where it's very touchdown reliant. Each year, Mike Evans ranks top 5 in deep targets and touchdown rating. But a guy like Gronkowski, who already has the chemistry with Tom Brady, is definitely going to affect that number. And if he doesn't improve on his reception yard totals, then where's the real upside in Mike Evans this year?
I personally believe that Mike Evans is the number 1 in this offense for a reason. And this was true last year. Mike Evans was the X receiver. He was the number 1. Chris Godwin was the slot, which kind of benefits, from the deeper targets and the slots, kind of cutting into the middle of the field and the short routes. And that'll reign true even this year, even though the team is supposed to be switching more to 12 personnel with Rob Gronkowski and OJ Howard being on the field. But, which would move Godwin out of the slot into the Y sort of role, or X. He and Evans could interchange in that because Godwin is very talented. I still believe, though, that Godwin, when he's in the slot, he's going to get peppered with targets. We've seen Brady use the slot receiver for decades, and I don't think that's going to change, especially when you have a receiver as talented as Godwin. Do believe Godwin's a little safer than Mike Evans, but this is me calling my shot and saying, Mike Evans is great, and Brady can still throw it deep. And Brady just hasn't had the same success recently because he hasn't had the receivers to do it with. The last great deep threat wide receiver he really had was Brandon Cooks back in 2017, who back then had a top 15 fantasy season, putting up over 1,000 yards, had around 7 or 8 touchdowns, I believe. And in a vacuum, I'll take Mike Evans over Brandon Cooks every time. So in an offense where Bruce Arians is going to be telling Brady to go deep and Mike Evans is your best option as far as going deep, I'll take, my shot on the talented receiver there with the great quarterback. And then, like I mentioned with Jared Cook, I thought he was a kind of touchdown dart throw. I think Gronk is in that same sense. Though, like we said, like you said, Brady already has the connection with Gronk. So, he may be already looking his direction when it comes time to get into the red zone. They need to score. Let's just find Gronk. I think OJ Howard's kind of the odd man out here.
Yeah.
Sucks
See, but
because
my biggest problem with Mike Evans is would you rather have Mike Evans or AJ Brown?
Mike Evans.
Dynasty. In Dynasty.
Mike Evans.
In Dynasty.
Yeah.
You're crazy. You're crazy.
I'm not
crazy.
Not crazy.
Give me AJ Brown every day of the week.
That's a debate for another day. We are going to finish this up really quickly by talking about the Carolina Panthers. Talk about changes. We go from Cam Newton to Teddy Bridgewater here. You add in Robbie Anderson. You get rid of Greg Olsen. Christian McCaffrey is going to be, at the very least, a top 3 running back for this season. not just in projections, but in fantasy finish, in my opinion. He's guaranteed. I like to call my shot here with DJ Moore. I have him ranked as a top 5 wide receiver in PPR. I just believe this is a terrible defense, and DJ Moore is more talented than any wide receiver on this offense by far. I mean, unless you count Christian McCaffrey, which I respect it if you do, because he's basically a wide receiver.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get a ton of targets, though. But we all know Teddy Bridgewater loves the short targets. I saw something earlier saying that Teddy Bridgewater had the lowest depth of target of all quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks at 6.1, and the next lowest was Jimmy Garoppolo at 6.5. So almost another half yard shorter than what Jimmy Garoppolo was doing. And DJ Moore excels in that range, and he's the type of player that can take a short slant to the house. I remember back before the 2018 draft, you and me talking about DJ Moore and how at the time he was more so discussed as like a late second, maybe third round pick, and you were sitting here banging the drum on him saying that he was the best wide receiver in the class, and he ended up being the first wide receiver off the board. And now I really see the pathway for him in year 3 to make the connection to being an elite fantasy option. Do you feel similarly? Do you have him a little lower?
No, I agree 1,000%. I literally have the same exact note. I said DJ Moore is a great pick for Dynasty leagues. He is top 5 wide receiver upside this year. And then I put in parentheses bubbles the Mike Thomas target year.
Right. Yeah. It's a little outrageous to say Mike Thomas, but
the quotation bubble.
140 targets this year, though, wouldn't surprise me at all. You have anyone else on this offense you're willing to take a shot on? Is it Ian Thomas or Curtis Samuel, Robbie Anderson, or Teddy himself?
A lot of people have been, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people. I should say in deeper leagues, a lot of people have been hyping up a little bit of Robbie Anderson, but I'm buying Curtis Samuel. It'll come at a cheaper price, and he's a proven playmaker that will have teams that will have schemes set up for him. And then on top of that, I think he has the upside of switching teams and being in a better situation. So I'm praying for that. And then post breakout tight end, Ian Thomas will be replacing Greg Olsen. He has the athletic profile and team situation to have a Austin Hooper-like breakout season.
He definitely does. And like I said, Teddy likes the short targets. So Ian Thomas could fill that role too. I think he's worth a shot later in drafts, and especially if you're waiting until the very end, sexier names like Jonnu Smith or Hayden Hurst or Mike Gesicki, you could sneak in at the very, very end there and take Ian Thomas, and you'll just, you could even pan out better than all of them. Who knows? As far as Curtis Samuel or Robbie Anderson, if I'm going to take a shot on one, it's going to be Curtis Samuel. I think we've seen what Robbie Anderson will be to this point. He's been in the league how many years now? 4 or 5 years. And, we want to make the connection back with him with Matt Rule because that was his coach at Temple. But at this point, Robbie, let's call him what he is. Like, he's just an inconsistent player. He's a deep threat that serves a role on a team, but he's an inconsistent player, and he has been for years now. And we all thought it was going to change when, Sam Darnold came in and, he was going to get consistent and more accurate targets, and then nothing happened. And then last year we all thought the potential was there, and then Sam Darnold got hurt with his sickness, and then when Sam Darnold came back, even then Robbie wasn't consistent or great. I think he's just going to stay an inconsistent and unreliable target. Like I said, I think he'll serve a role in this pass-heavy offense. He's a clear top 3 wide receiver on this team, so he's going to be on the field a lot. But if I'm gonna take a shot on someone to break out, and at the spot that you're drafting them, you're more so taking a shot on someone to break out. You don't, I don't think Robbie's just gonna step in and be consistent. Like a Golden Tate level player. There's nothing really to suggest that. So if you're taking the shot on someone to break out, I'm going to take the shot on the younger player who I think is more talented with Curtis Samuel. Really quickly too, Teddy Bridgewater is someone that I think is very low upside in fantasy leagues this year, but I don't mind necessarily having him as a quarterback 2 in Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues. I think he'll be consistent. I think he'll be sort of the, let's say, 14 to 17 point per game guy, and kind of rarely get more than that, but rarely get less. I just think he's a safe guy, and he's, never going to win you a week, but he's someone where, you want to sort of have the safety net there, we'll say. And the price for Teddy Bridgewater right now is very cheap. And it's funny because I still see people who believe that PJ Walker is going to take over that starting job from Teddy Bridgewater, even after they gave him a 3-year, $22 million a year deal. I believe Teddy's the guy. I believe it's Teddy's team, and I believe this defense is bad, so they're going to have to throw a lot. So to me, like I said, I believe Teddy is a solid quarterback 2, not someone I'm targeting as a quarterback 1 at all, but you want someone who can produce well enough and not hurt you. I think Teddy's a good guy for.
Agreed.
So, that's basically the NFC South. Any other points you want to bring up real quick before we head on out, Bill?
No, sir.
All right. Thanks again for tuning in. We will catch you next weekend, most likely, as we cover another division to be determined in the NFC. Well, probably in the NFC, but who knows? We might even switch it up and go to the AFC for some unknown reason. But yeah, catch us here on YouTube at Dynasty Force Podcast. Catch us on Twitter at Dynasty Force Pod. We're going to be going live Wednesday at 6 p.m. July 15th with a Fantasy Feud episode. That's going to be great. Can't wait for that. And then catch us at our email, dynastyforcepod at gmail.com, with any questions, recommendations. Subscribe to us on YouTube to catch our future videos. And yeah, follow me on Twitter at FantasyForceFB. Follow Billy at getting_bills_. And I hope you all enjoy your night. And I hope we were able to bring a little bit of fantasy sunshine into your day.